Welcome back to Imperfect, the Heart Centered Leadership Podcast. It's always a joy for me to highlight a colleague. And when they're a colleague and friend, it's even better in my local city. And today I want to welcome my colleague and friend, Michelle Clermont. I want to tell you a little bit about Michelle, and then we're going to get into a good interview and a good chat. So, Michelle is a personal support worker, and I didn't want to say the acronym PSW because I know every sector has its acronyms, and that can mean something totally different. So, personal support worker, she's recently got her certificate and education in becoming a deaf doula. She's a fellow hospice volunteer. And I always love the story and the unfolding of an entrepreneur's journey. So, Michelle, if you would share with our listeners a little bit about why you became a PSW, because you know you're my favorite PSW, and I refer you to everybody, why you added on the additional education. I always like my guests to share a little bit of their story because I can read your bio and tell everyone how wonderful you are. But this is your story and your journey. And if you could just do a little share with us, and then we'll get into our leadership questions.
Absolutely. So I initially became a PSW in 2017. My grandmother was in a nursing home in Lindsay, Ontario. She had dementia, and I didn't know very much about it at the time. And she decided that we were all stealing from her and banned us from her nursing home. So we couldn't visit. And during the time that we were banned because of her paranoia, sadly, a minister and his lawyer daughter befriended my grandmother and got her to sign over her power of attorney to them. This created some chaos around her funeral and trying to wrap things up from that end. In that same time frame, I decided that I wanted to be a PSW because I wanted to protect seniors. Or vulnerable people. You don't have to be seniors, but vulnerable to people that would take advantage. In 2023, I had a loss of my 29-year-old son, Alex, who died of dehydration. He got sick and he didn't let anybody in the family know, and he didn't contact anyone in the family to let us know that he was sick. So there was nobody there poking him and telling him to drink and to eat, and he sadly dehydrated. My grief journey has been interesting. It has been really hard. I would say for the first 8 to 9 months, it was really, really hard. I was not very functional. But I've always been able to find coping mechanisms for myself. So I had already been using coloring as a coping mechanism, meditation, writing, music, poetry. So I have a lot of tools in my toolbox, and they helped me to navigate my grief. And I live my life to make my son proud. So I really wanted to become a death doula because I recognized that I have been pretty good at grief. And if I can handle this most profound grief of losing my child, then I can handle everybody's grief in their journey and treat them with kindness and understanding. So that's why I've become a death doula as well.
You know, it's we align so much. As you know, we've known each other for 10 years, and I think when I listen to your grief journey, it's almost like you navigate grief, and then at the same time our emotional resilience goes up. And I think because personally and professionally, I've always been around trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say to me, like, how do you handle that? Like, how do you stay calm? And how do you go to hospice? And how do you volunteer there? And isn't that depressing? And I always say the same sentence. I'm like, it's such a joy. And I'm just a little farther down the road on the grief journey.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that.
No, you're very welcome.
And I couldn't think of a better person to now not only be doing the PSW work, but adding on the death doula and the richness of your own sadness and grief and joy and strategies and just motivation, because we all know grief's not linear and it can come on like a tsunami. And I always just stop, drop, and cry at eyes ring in. And it's like, okay, this is a grief moment. And I think when we let go of the pressure of how we're to be cognitively and emotionally stable, everyone's journey is different.
Absolutely.
And I coach many people who have tremendous loss, and it's a joy. And again, just a little farther down the road. It doesn't mean I'm on any chart, I'm any higher. It's just I'm just a little farther.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So I love that. So I have some great questions because being an executive and leadership coach and then having you on today, I thought, oh, I'm going to marry these two worlds so well. So I'm going to ask you my first question. How do you ensure that you remain present and compassionate when you are involved? I'm going to call it moments of emotional intensity, both for the person you're supporting and then looking after Michelle at the same time. Share how you've come to navigate and become really good at that.
I have found that I have an ability to step back from it inside me so that I can listen, excuse me, actively and be calm in their presence as they're venting or having a meltdown or whatever that looks like. I'm calm and I don't overreact. And that provides more comfort for them than anything else I could possibly do. For myself, the fact that I kind of step back from it, I recognize it's not about me. It's not it's theirs. And I think that's a real gift that allows me to balance that. I've also started going to church for the first time in my adult life, which I feel is an important part of processing and allowing a more spiritual side of myself some calm time.
You know, one of my favorite things that I share and teach on is a word called equanimity, and it means mental calmness and composure.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're very good at that. And I love the way you framed it. I think it's an emotional intelligence and a self care technique for you to step outside and be external and just really be present for someone because you know exactly how they feel, but it's not your time, it's their time.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful in maintaining balance and also truly doing what you do best, which is a caregiver role, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, my second question's kind of fun and it has permanent residency on the show. I've asked over 300 leaders this question.
Yep.
What imperfection does Michelle bring to her heart-centered leadership?
I would say my imperfection is that I don't always believe in myself. Most of the time I do. I really do. But I can still get lost in oh, I wasn't good enough and a little bit of perfectionism. I think that's what that is. So that's the one.
Well, we like imperfection. It's the name of the show, and we bask in imperfection all around here. So I love that.
I
Okay.
do actually, when I'm with my clients, if I make a mistake, I will make a joke about it. Like I will make it fun. I will make them laugh and just redirect because we're humans.
Absolutely. And you know
We make
what?
mistakes.
I think imperfection always leaves room or opens the bandwidth for candor and humor. And if we can't laugh at ourselves, like what are we doing? Not we're living a life of perfection, which is an intangible reality.
Absolutely. Yep.
So great strategy. Okay, my third leadership question is, can you share a time when you felt your leadership made a meaningful difference in someone's end of life experience?
Mm. As far as end of life experience, I have a couple of different scenarios. One where it's more about supporting the family around them, and others, but I'll kind of combine them. Some of my favorite things in doing end of life care is for the person who's dying, they can share their stories and tell me that they want to die when they can't necessarily tell their family they want to die.
Yeah.
And that's humongous for them. And I feel that. I know how important it is for them. So I accept that and I don't judge that. And I let them have that moment. And I think that's so important. I'm also I've done a lot of supportive family around a dying person as well. So giving those extra hugs, listening to the concerns for the person who's passing, resetting expectations for them so that they understand that some of these things are natural and you don't really have a lot of control over them. So guiding them along that path. I have helped families after go through the person they lost clothes. I have helped them deal with cleaning out fridges in people that lived alone, made donations to the food bank of food that could be used by other people. It's just an overall approach to make this as gentle as possible on the person who's passing and the family around them.
I knew you were going to answer this question like this, and I anchored some points, and I knew you were going to hit them all. Your reflection encourages your leadership and the impact you're having on the person who's at end of life, and you take on families.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And I just want to highlight the importance of your compassionate guidance, whether it is the person at end of life or the family. And you can have the most meaningful conversation cleaning out someone's fridge,
Absolutely.
cleaning out their room, folding their clothes. I always call them God moments, and it's just a stop and pause. And I've been there myself. I know you have. And it's a tender moment. And those are the ones that really stick, at least with me. I'm sure when I asked you that question, you thought of a few, but there was two that you wanted to combine. And there's just, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe we land with the people who we're supposed to work with.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I know that to be true with you. And I know, as an aside, many years ago, I had a predominant business person in London who we won't name. And he called me at like 11 o'clock at night, and which was odd. And he said, I want the best PSW in London for my dad. And they still talk about you. And then you even went back and helped with the mother. And it's, when you can call someone and recommend what I like to call a trusted partner, and then you also know them as a friend, they don't even second guess it.
No, that's true.
But they still talk about you, and I wanted to tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm always here for them and they know that too.
They do. They do. Okay, my last leadership question is, in your role, how do you create a space of trust and safety for both your clients and their families during those vulnerable moments?
I'm going to share a story about a young man that I take care of. The young man has cerebral palsy. He's 18 years old. He's living at home and he has been very protected by his parents throughout his life for very good reasons. But now I have gained his complete trust. I'm his mentor and I am encouraging him. When I met him, we were using a machine to transfer him from his wheelchair to his bed. After about 7 months with me, he started getting himself in and out of his bed with his wheelchair. I encourage him at school to go to different events, to work through some social anxiety that he has. And I see little things happening. His grandmother loves me. Like just loves that I'm in his life. And I do. I keep encouraging him to take little steps towards some independence for himself so that he feels a sense of pride.
Well, and I mean, trust and rapport go together in any kind of work. It doesn't
Yes.
matter what sector we're in. And I love that you are focusing on the value of trust and rapport. And I know you gain it quickly because of who you are and what you do, but creating those safe spaces, you're fostering a deep connection, and it's still a difficult time for the parents, which you also could,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
can step into that observer's chair too, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I just see such empathy and presence and compassionate leadership come from you, and the emotional context doesn't matter.
Yep.
You're there to meet them wherever they're at.
Where they are.
And that takes a special kind of person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that my clients will say things like, I love you within a couple of visits, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. I
That's
care
nice.
about you too, right?
Yeah, it's lovely, but you
Yeah.
gain trust and rapport, and once you have that, magic happens.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to ask you my 4 fun questions. My
All right.
4. Okay, if you could give one practical tip to our listeners today for embracing heart-centered leadership in their life, what would it be?
Take a walk outside, ground yourself,
Yeah.
take a deep breath, look around and find beauty. It's out there.
Yeah. We always have room to pause, right? Okay, this is a new question we did for season 5, and I love the answers I've been getting. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be?
Hmm. Better day?
Do you know who sings it?
Not off the top.
Not all. And why did you pick that one?
Because it's what I want to do is make someone's day a little bit better. I want to make them smile. I want to make them laugh if I can.
Yeah.
I want to make them get deep with their confessions if they need to. Whatever that is, I want to make their day a little better.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, how would you summarize one key takeaway or lesson for our listeners today from our discussion? What's the one takeaway you want to leave with our listeners?
Empathy is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's position. It allows you to meet them where they are and guide them towards a better day.
Absolutely. And it's not to be confused with sympathy.
Nope. It's not
That
sympathy.
a lot of people confuse that. That's
For
really
sure.
nice. Okay, before I have you finish the show with I have you finish a sentence, I want to say thanks for doing the podcast today. I know you're a little under the weather, but you're always a trooper. And thank you for landing in this additional space of care and caregiving. And we have all of your details below in the podcast episode description. And I know that sometimes people might live out of the geographic region that you live in. Do you offer virtual services for people?
I can certainly help guide them to finding people. I also love connecting people who I know. So if I know somebody in their geographic area that I know is heart centered, then I'm going to refer them to that person. And I try to always build those connections so that I do have a whole group of people that I can refer out.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on expanding your business and just kudos for all the heart centered work that you do. And I'm going to have you finish the show by finishing this sentence. Heart centered leadership is.
Is respecting your heart and providing guidance that is kind on World Kindness Day and helps people be a little bit better.